Hey everybody, today I'm talking about Hansa, which is a 2 to 4 player board game. Takes about 30 minutes to play, even though the box states it takes 1 hour to play. From the look of the box, you probably think this game looks ancient, and it does look ancient. I mean, it's a very bland looking game. However, it actually came out in 2004, so it's a lot more modern than it looks. And the look of the game and the way the game plays, I don't think is quite it's quite fitting either, because it's actually quite a simple, fun little game that isn't quite as stuffy and dry as it looks. So the idea of the game is we are different merchants in the Hanseatic Sea, trying to collect different kind of resources or merchant goods and trade them in at our own merchant houses for victory points at the end of the game. However, there is quite a few twists in the game that are very simple, but quite quite well designed and quite well implemented. So first off, everybody is going to have an investment or an interest in this main ship on the board, which is your player piece. But it's not only your player piece; it's every other player's piece as well, because you've got this basically a trade route of different sea paths you can go down, which go from city to city. There's going to be some resources allocated to every city, represented by these different barrels of different colours. And the idea is you're trying to collect these different barrels of matching colours and trade them in at least 2 at a time for those victory points. The game has quite a structured breakdown in what you can do on your turn. At the start of every round, you're going to be rewarded 3 coins, and you're going to need coins to pretty much do almost everything in this game. So first off, it's going to cost you a coin to move from one trade route to another. So you've got to bear that in mind. When you get to a city, you can take 1 action before having to move on to take another action. And those actions are pretty simple. One of them is to pay a coin in order to take one of the resources to that city. But that's not always the case, because if you have the most trade houses on that city, then you're not going to have to pay anything. If there's a kind of a draw or a tie for who's got the most trade houses on that city, then you pay it to the bank. Or if another player's got the most trade houses on that city, you actually have to pay the coin to them. So that's a decision to bear in mind there. The second action ties into that, whereas you trade in those resources or the barrels you've collected in order to build more merchant buildings in that city. So you can kind of increase your stack of buildings, which obviously gives you the majority, which means when people go there to buy goods, you'll get the coin instead. And the other thing is to trade in your resources for points. So to do that, you need to have your own different merchant house there, otherwise you can't do it. And if you trade in your goods, then you, as I said, you have to trade in at least 2 at a time, and you can trade in multiple different colours. And when you trade them in, you're going to get victory points equal to the number of tokens, but also the number of barrels on those tokens, because they come into nominations of 1, 2, or 3 barrels, and obviously 3 barrels being a lot more lucrative. But there's another trick to it as well, because when you trade in those resources for those victory points, or selling the goods, I think it's called, every other player with a matching token of that colour has to discard one. So there's a little bit of player interaction there, a little bit of nastiness, but it does work quite well. And at the end of the round, you can only ever carry up to 3 coins through to the next round, and also 3 merchant goods. So you can't just stockload a load of money or stockpile a load of money and stockpile a load of resources either. You've got to be quite savvy about what you do on your turns and how much you're carrying from turn to turn. But that being said, obviously if you are dominating on a lot of those different cities by having the most trade houses, and people keep buying resources, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have a lot of money on your turn, because remember, it's at the end of your turn you have to discard down to 3 coins and not at the beginning. So you can go into the round quite comfortably with 7 or 8 coins sometimes, which is really powerful, and you can get a lot done. It's quite interesting about how the map is laid out, because it's not like you can keep going from city to city back and forth, because you can only go certain paths on the kind of the merchant route. So one city might go to another, and then that city can go to another 3 cities, and then that one can go to another 2 cities, but you can never kind of go back on yourself. So there's this real kind of interesting puzzle about what you're going to do on your turn, and you can really map it out quite cleverly. For example, you could say, I've got the most merchant houses here, so I can take this resource for free, which lets me travel to here. I'll trade in that resources to build a new merchant house there. I go to the next city, pick up a good, go to the next city, trade in another 2 goods where I've got my merchant house. And also when you do sell your goods, you have to take off one of your merchant houses, so that stack's going to be constantly fluctuating. So it's just a really nice tactical little game that's simple but thought-provoking. Bearing in mind what other players can do on their turn, because you want to make players pay for what they want to do, not only by collecting those goods by paying you, but also leaving the ship in a maybe not so advantageous place, so that you have to at least travel a little bit and spend their coins before they can do anything, which is pretty much where the tactics and the strategy of the game really lies. I do love the way the game works mechanically, I'll be honest. Just that very structured, almost throwback, streamlined, stripped back mechanisms just work really well. And all the different approaches and tactics you can take are quite interesting and quite rewarding as well when it does pay off, because you can, as I said, sometimes if you have a little bit of money, you can get a lot done on your turn, and those turns are quick as well, because you are literally just traveling down a ship, getting rid of a coin, picking up a resource, get rid of a coin, and before you know it, your turn's over. And so there's not a lot of downtime, there's not a lot of kind of scope to lose interest. The board state is always changing, because the trade houses are going up and down as people are building more or selling goods. The resources are constantly getting eaten up. And something I should have mentioned as well is at the start of the turn, you get an option to replenish all the resources on the different cities. Obviously, as the game develops, they're going to get taken. But you can spend 1 coin, which completely makes the board flush with resources again, which can be a double-edged sword, because it's going to benefit you, because you get a lot more kind of the pick of the litter of the resources you want. But players coming after you are also going to get a very good deal out of that as well. So you've got to bear that in mind when you are going to replenish the market, because again, it can really help your opponents at times. Time investment wise, as I said, the box says it takes an hour to play. It doesn't. I got the game played, I think a 3-player game played in half an hour. It felt very snappy. It's not actually that, or the game ends when there is a certain number of replenishments, because there's stacks of tiles or the resources, and when you replenish them, they're going to get constantly eaten up, and when it gets to that last pile of resources, the game, the end of the game is triggered, and it doesn't take long at all. So uptime, time investment, excellent. Replayability wise, I don't think this is a game you're going to constantly get to the table. However, it does feel very unique. So in that respect, it's not like there's another game out there that does what Hansa does better than Hansa does. It's very different in the way it feels. Again, very stripped back. So there's no bloat to the game whatsoever, and it just feels fun, fast, and just different than anything else. Aesthetically, the game looks miserable. It is so ugly, it is bland, it is drab. I mean, I like dry looking games, but this one is almost a bit too dry for me. It is very boring looking. The art is very primitive, all brown, and just, not attractive. So I think a lot of players are going to be put off by the initial look of the game. But as I said, the actual mechanics and fun you get out of the game is not reflective on the art at all. But it's a strange direction to go in terms of what the game looks like. But I kind of understand where they're going for, but I think it's going to be more of a hindrance in terms of not gaining people's interest than it is in actually getting the interest of players who like these kind of dry games. The theme is very dry as well, just being different merchants, picking up goods and selling goods, like a lot of these Euro games. So nothing new whatsoever, and it's pretty much tried and tested. The progression of the game is a bit strange, because you're pretty much doing the same thing throughout all of the game. However, you're always keeping an eye on where you've got your merchant houses, because it is a bit of a balancing act. You want to collect those resources in order to trade them in, but you also need those resources to build your own merchant houses, which is very important. And also at the end of the game, you get 2 points for each city you're in with your merchant houses. And also, if you've got a monopoly on those cities by being the only person there, then you get 4 points, which can be quite swingy and can give you a lot of points. So, you've got to monitor the end of the game because you want to have quite a good coverage on the board. Scalability wise, I think the sweet spot for this game is about 3 players. I think it works well at 2, but 3 players is really where it sings for me. 4 players, again, absolutely fine. I think the kind of hierarchy of player counts I'd rather choose would be 3 players, then 4 players, and then 2 players. And comparison-wise as well, I mean, I suppose a lot of pick up and deliver games have similarities to Hansa, but the terms or the way it's stripped back and the almost mechanical mechanisms are quite unique. But yeah, overall, this is a game that really did come out of the nothing for me. But I really enjoyed it. It's really good. It's really different. Again, not brain dead decisions. You're always thinking about what you're leaving your opponent, how to get the most out of your turns, how to use your money in the most effective way. Picking up resources when you've got the most trade houses, so you get it for free. And you can really get a lot done and travel the board a lot on your turns if you do things in the right order at the right time. Very tactical, but really engaging. The dynamic board state is interesting as things are constantly changing in terms of all the different things you've got to manage. But yeah, a really solid game, and one that I would recommend if you like your pick up and deliver games, if you like stripped back, simple games, and are not deterred by the aesthetic of a game, because it looks so bland, and that is going to deter a lot of people. But yeah, it's fun, and I would recommend it. So this one gets a good verdict from me. I would happily play this again, and I will play it again. And I actually look forward to introducing it to new players, because I think it's so easy to digest, but has quite a lot to sink your teeth into. So yeah, a good verdict from me. That is Hansa. Go check this one out if this one does appeal to you. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.